I think the church as a whole is changing. People maybe view the church differently now than how they did, say, 20 years ago or 30 years ago. So I think people do have a different perspective on church in 2015, but I also think it's still relevant. You know, a lot of our talk shows, a lot of debates around maybe the place of church, on freedom of speech, and of religion, and all sorts of things that are tied in with the church and who we are. So while I think the position of church is changing and has changed, it's clearly still relevant because people still want to talk about it, still want to debate.
Well, I think certainly the society's view of the church has changed in the last 10, 15, 20, even 30 years. Society, for the most part, has little time for the church, and this is evidenced in local media, in the reporting in the news with regard to church activities and church statements.
I think there's a discrepancy between what people think is society and what's church. I think you can't talk of the two because they're all mixed up, because the church is in society and society's in the church. But very often what happens is people perceive the church as being paternalistic, judgmental on our views on sexuality and women and all of those sorts of contemporary moral issues. They see a church that's out of touch. I think it's true to say that not very long ago, the church, certainly in Northern Ireland, was had a place it felt was at the centre of society and the centre of all the institutions in society. So we had a strong role to play within schools, the education system, socially. For lots of communities, the church was at the centre of it all.
Well, I haven't been in ministry for all that long, maybe to see significant changes, but in times where I have, I guess there's an increase in interest in serving the local community, of being part of the local community. We do things maybe now far more beyond the doors of the church than we have done for the last generation or so. So there's definitely an increase in interest in being part of the community, being seen by the community.
In my church in Joymount, we have a youth cafe church. This wouldn't have been heard of 10, 15 years ago. We reach out to young people and engage with young people at their level. We change the structure and the liturgy of the church again so that worship can be meaningful for young people. And there's a great deal of support in the church for this, and I think that it's a way in which the churches have shown that they can be relevant. I think that with new technology we are able to engage in different ways and by different means. We have for some years, for example, in Joymount, produced a DVD of the service, which is distributed to over 50 people in our congregation. We are looking at ways in the future to stream the services for our more senior citizens, and also to be able to stream over the internet services of marriage, baptisms, and also funeral services, which will be helpful for those who are living overseas and who can't come along to these special services.
In terms of the expectations that are placed upon ministers to be seen to communicate, Facebook, Twitter, internet, all of those things, and the whole rise of marketing and the importance of marketing, and that has drifted across the Atlantic and has now affected churches and how churches interact with their communities and with the people around them and even with their own congregations. I think there's a huge danger, however, in this. I think there is a risk that you're taken away from the fundamental focus of the gospel.
I think there's already a difference in how churches and ministers and clergy, embrace social media. I think primary to what we do as a church is that we have a message, we have a gospel, we have something to teach and something to share. But part of that is that God through His Word told us never to give up meeting together. That was relevant over 2,000 years ago, and it's relevant now in 2015. So I think we want to be able to communicate with people. We want to be able to communicate effectively and reach people where they're at, and that'll happen through Facebook and Twitter and other things. But that never takes the place of actually coming together, of being God's people, of being what we understand we are, the body of the church.